Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Pufftastic, but you can call me Puff. So before I get into the video, I just want to thank everyone for the support on the last video. It was insane. I didn't expect to get over 100 views on that post, and the likes were really high. So yeah, I thank you for everyone. I thank everyone that liked and subscribed, and anyone that just watched it, because I hope even if you didn't like it that you did enjoy it. And I think it got 100% likes, so I don't think anyone disliked it. But yeah, so in the background of today's video I'm doing a bit of Raiden, so you can see that I'm doing the line art of Raiden. I've already got onto the colouring. You might be able to see that on my shorts. If you go to my shorts page, I have a short up of me working on that I stole from my Instagram, because I don't want to record multiple videos for different platforms. And today I'm thinking of just talking a little bit about my art improvement and how I got from really amateur 3 years ago to where I am now, which depending on how you view my art, it could either be alright to amazing. It just depends on your preference of art. So, but I think I have developed my style in a way that a lot of people would consider it high quality now, or at least good. So I'm quite happy about where I am with my art at the moment, and I will be giving some tips on how I got there. So I started drawing 3 years ago, digitally. I did draw a little bit before then, but it wasn't like a hobby. I didn't seriously take it up. I just draw in the back of class because I got really bored. And when I was 13, my mom, because I had an interest in wanting to learn to draw, my mom brought me a tablet for my 13th birthday, and it was just a basic Samsung tablet, but that allowed me to get Ibis Paint on my tablet and start learning to draw. So I would often watch tutorials for a little bit, like from the official Ibis Paint YouTube channel, and I was into gacha the year before, so I had a lot of inspiration from gacha. And to start off building a following, I would enter Draw This in Your Styles in the gacha community, and because a lot of people were doing edits for their entries and I was actually drawing, I actually won a lot of them, even though that art was absolutely terrible. Now I look back on it. But this is getting on to my next point. One of the reasons why I improved so fast was because I had an ego. I had a massive ego. I thought my art was amazing, and I'm going to get into why an ego can be good and bad. So an ego for art can be good because it means that you're not experiencing art block that much. You feel confident in what you're drawing, you feel a bit bold in the direction you're going to take your work, and that's really important to branching out and improving. But where it can be really bad is when it's stagnant. It stagnates your work, and it means that you don't feel like you have to improve anymore, so you don't try new things and you don't work towards improving. So you need to find a balance where you're confident and you love your work even if you are a beginner, but you also see room to improve. And this is what I did. I would always, when I finished a piece, I would look at the work and I would say, what do I like about this? What do I not like about this? So I might say, I like the pose, I like the composition, but I don't like how I did the hair. I think I could improve on that. I don't like how I did the body. And I go through this for probably about a few hours, and then I'd be like, okay, so this time I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to keep this the same. And that also kept a style consistency for me as well. So I would really recommend trying that if you are a beginner artist. And going on to the next part of my art journey, by the middle of 2020, I'd already improved quite a bit. And this is where I needed to learn a bit of anatomy, because my anatomy was funky, and I will call this the uncanny phase because my work looked uncanny. And I am just going to say, if you are listening to this in audio, I am going to put images, so if you just want to flick and see what it was like rather than me describing it, it's on the screen. But anyway, I will call this uncanny because there were some very, very good elements about the work, but then there was also really terrible ones. But I was really adventurous with my compositions of my work, and I was trying new things all the time. I was this is when I started to reference other artists, and I started to develop my style based off other artists, but I'll get into this in the next segment. By this point, I had formed like a kind of group of artists that I really liked, and they did fan art from fandoms that I enjoyed, such as, at the time it was Danganronpa, so there were a few Danganronpa artists that I really liked, and I would take their art and I would look at it and I'd say, I like how they colour, I like how they draw eyes, I like how they do this thing that I could take and I could create something new from. So this is where I will explain, when you are referencing your favourite artists, let's say for example you really like how I draw. So I do my colours, I use a lot of colours. I start with a primary set of colours. I'll choose 3 colours and then I'll kind of vary the rest of the colours based off of those colours. So I might have a light source in the corner. I always like to use light sources, so almost all my pieces have light sources, so you might say I want to do that too, and you may do something with your art where you use and try to replicate what I do while also making it into your own style so that you are a distinct artist. And the point of this is, if you are copying someone directly, that is not your own work at that point. You need to look at things that you like and say, how can I transform this and make it into something new, something that fits my brand and something that aids my improvement but also doesn't completely copy other people. So that's what I've been doing for the past few years, and it seriously works. So I also recommend doing things such as anatomy studies. This isn't something that I've particularly done, but it's something that I plan on doing this year because I sometimes struggle a lot with certain poses and I am kind of limited on what I can actually do. I can do some things very high quality, but a lot of things I struggle with dynamic things because I haven't done it in so long. So that's something that I need to personally improve on, for example. So when I got to this awkward stage during 2020, that's when I started branching out and deciding what I wanted to staple my art as, and this is when I started developing a proper art style. And you shouldn't really worry about developing an art style until you get to this stage, because this stage is when you are getting good enough to be able to keep consistency with your style, and you don't need to improve enough that your style is going to be constantly changing. So I recommend using other artists that you like. Do they use bright colours? Do you want to use bright colours? Do they use saturated colours? Do you want to use saturated colours? And learn from the sketches, from the process. If they do tutorials on the internet, learn from those how they did it. I also recommend watching speed paints. Speed paints are great for learning how artists that you like and artists that are good, seeing how they do things. Do they do a really messy sketch to start with and then develop from there, or do they go straight into the detail? It also helps with your workflow by watching how other people do it, because you might be really slow like I am, but you want to learn how to speed up a little bit, so you can look at how these artists use the process to speed things up, such as using the bucket tool. I use that now to colour in things instead of just lining everything. So yeah, that's something else I recommend, and by the time I got to the end of 2020, my colours were getting a lot more vibrant. It will be on screen, like I said before. Moving on to my second year of art, this was when I was segmenting a style. I started off, I was very inspired by Ibble Scribbles. She is an amazing artist. She has a lot of speed paints up, and I still have a little bit of inspiration from her art today in my work, and it really helped me improve. But I would take things that I liked about her work and say, how can I transform this into something new? How can I make this look something original without completely copying someone? Because it makes you feel bad if you copy someone on top of that. You want something original. But I was experimenting with different things. I was deciding what I wanted to brand myself on, and from here on out I was just working on what details do I want to improve within my art. Do I want to do still images? Do I want to branch out, try to do animation? I don't have the capacity to be patient enough to do animation, so I just stuck to illustration, and you can see throughout the year how I progress, but this was a lot more of a stunted year in terms of my growth. I didn't draw that much because I had a lot of art block, because when you hit this stage, you generally get a lot of art block because it's a stage within your work where you feel as though you were good enough at times, but then also you look at other people's work and think, oh my god, I'm terrible. So I was in this stage, so there were a lot of times where I took breaks, but I was also still experimenting a lot. I decided towards the end of the year that I wanted to do more in-depth colours rather than pastel, so I was learning how to do that, and then by the next year I found a few artists that I liked that were really colourful, that used a lot of deep colours. So then I started learning colour theory, and colour theory is important. When you get to a stage where you're happy with how your characters look, you want to learn how to use colour theory and how colour theory works against different things. So let's say if you have a very dark colour and you draw over the top of that with a really light colour, if you draw that light colour on top of a light background, it's going to look severely different. So you really just need to mess around with a bunch of colour palettes and try with different lightings, watch lighting tutorials, learn how other artists do it, look at really dynamic art in terms of colour, so artworks that utilise a lot of dynamic colour themes, such as really dark scenes, really light scenes, all that kind of thing. It is really useful, and that's what I've been doing the past year. I've been getting a bunch of artists I like, taking my own art. This is something that I would also recommend to stay consistent, is to bring up your own art and reference your own artwork when you are working, because it allows you to stay consistent, but then also don't feel scared to change things up occasionally. If you want to keep consistent, that's great, but you're also going to need to vary your ideas a little bit so that you are improving, and you always need to keep that ego about you while also allowing yourself to think, you know what, I can also improve, I can change this, I can change that. And also don't be afraid to go into more detail, such as how recently I've started painting over top of my mistakes and part of my line art, because I've decided that I like painted styles, but I also don't want to give up doing line art because it's what I've always done and I enjoy doing line art. So I do a stage where I'll do a basis paint and then I'll also paint over the top of the work, and that works for me. And this is how I have really just improved over the past 3 years, and how I've based myself and tips that I've done. I still look back at all my work and I think, what do I like about it, what don't I like about it, what can I improve about it, and I think, what lighting do I want to do this time, how am I going to improve my colour theory, how am I going to speed up my process. So those are some 3 key important things you need to think about: your process of speed, your colours and how you're going to utilise your colours, and your pose and dynamics, how you're going to make the actual composition look. And planning all of that out and having a vision can really aid your work. It really improves your work, and that's how I recommend fast improvement. But I also say that everyone works at a different pace, so just because I have learned really fast and my improvement has been very dramatic, I am a fast learner. I'm also a visual learner, so speed paints are very, very useful to me and I learn a lot from them. Meanwhile, you might not be a visual learner, and explanations help you a lot more because you're able to visualise that in your head through words. I'm not completely sure how that works, but some people are like that. So honestly, I just say to you, work out what you are. Are you a visual learner? Are you not a visual learner? If you are a visual learner, that's great because I can help you. But if you're not, then I recommend just finding ways that you think that you improve the fastest. Look at your own old work. Try to work visually if you can. I'd say visual learning is the easiest way, but that's probably because I'm biased. But that's how I recommend you improve your process. And if your improvement doesn't come fast, don't worry. Everyone works at a different pace, like I was going to say earlier, and I think I went off on the tangent. I'm really sorry. But honestly, there's not much more to my process than that. Over the last year, I've just got more dynamic with my backgrounds, focused on how I'm going to use a colour overall on the work. I just choose what I want to do at what point, and honestly, if you just keep to doing that, then you shouldn't really have that many issues. And I mean, I hope this was useful. If there's anything that you'd like me to get more in depth in, I can do a part 2, I can go more in depth in a part 2. But if you did enjoy this video, then I would really appreciate if you could like this, follow me, or subscribe to me. I'm not used to using YouTube. Tell me in the comments how this was. Do you like this kind of setup? Any kind of tips? Anything that you'd like to add on? Any tips that you've got for other people to improve that might be useful for any beginners in the description? In the comments, not description. I may have my new Discord server linked in the bottom if it's complete by then. I don't know, but I'll see you in the next video, and I really hope you enjoyed. Alright, bye!